Hello there and welcome to the Card Grotto. Today I have a see-through underwater scene to share with you using new Hero Arts products from the July My Monthly Hero release. So first of all, I've taken a piece of Dove White cardstock and I folded that to be into a 5" by 5" square card base, and then I've taken some Hero Arts Decorative Woodgrain cardstock and I've also cut that to 5" by 5", and I'm just using some low tack tape. This is removable tape from Scotch and 3M, and I'm just using that to adhere that panel, decorative panel, onto the front of my card base. I don't want to stick it down just yet because I want to die cut this Porthole fancy die out of the front. And this is from the new My Monthly Hero July release. And so I'm just going to run that through my die cutting machine, and it's going to cut the top layer, the decorative cardstock, but it's not going to cut all the way through. But what it is going to do is leave an indentation so that I can line up the die again perfectly as where it is, and then the holes are going to be in the exact same place. So as you can just about see on camera there, it's left an indentation, and I can just slot that die back into place and run that through my die cutting machine, and then it's just going to cut the entire thing out. I just want the circle portion for the front at the moment, and then I can just stick that panel onto the front. But before I do that, I'm going to add a layer of acetate in between. This is Hero Arts acetate sheets, but you could use a piece of packaging or something like that as well. So I'm just going to cut that down to size to fit on the front of the card. And then I'm using some tape runner here just to add adhesive all around that aperture there. I did struggle with that tape runner when I was making this video, so I apologise for that, but just using my nail here just to run around the edges of that circle, just to remove any of the excess little bits from die cutting, and then I can stick that acetate piece on top. And doing it this way means that I can sandwich that acetate in between the two cardstock panels, and therefore you're not going to be able to see it on the inside, which is really helpful. So again, I'm just running my nail around that, and then I can just add some adhesive onto that wood grain piece, and then I can stick that down onto the front of the card base. And like I said, that's just going to hide that acetate. Now I have cut 3 more of the Porthole fancy dies. That's from white cardstock. And then I'm going to stick that on the inside where the acetate is. So I've added some tape runner around the outside edges, and then I'm just using some precision glue here just to add that along those pieces in the middle. And then I can stick that down onto the acetate, and that's going to create my window for the front of the card so that you can be able to see a scene on the inside. And then I've also cut another porthole from some silver glitter cardstock. So I'm again just running the adhesive around that, adding some more liquid adhesive, and then I can stick that on top. And again, I'm just going to add an acrylic block on top of that just while the glue dries to stick it all together. So next I'm going to work on the inside portion of my scene. I've taken a piece of Hero Arts Arctic cardstock. This is a really pale bluish kind of colour, and it works quite nicely when ink blending because I want to have blue on top of this. But if I work with a white card base, or a white panel I should say, to start with, I'm going to be doing a lot more ink blending than I need to, so I like to start off with a lighter colour to start with, and that gives me my lightest shade in the middle. So I'm adding that Splash Reactive ink all around the outside edges and leaving the inside fairly clear of any sort of ink, just lightly going over that, but you'll see the colour of the cardstock through that. And then I'm going in with the Blue Hawaii Reactive ink, and I'm just adding that around the outside edges. I want the outside edges to be a bit darker than the inside. So just adding that all across the outside, and then I'm going to spritz on some water using the Hero Arts mist bottle. This just gives a really nice fine mist. So I let that sit for a few seconds and then just pick up any excess with a paper towel. And then I'm just going to do that twice just to give some nice sort of watermarks, just so that it looks a little bit more interesting and it's not completely flat colour. And then I want to add some light rays onto this, but I'm using the sun background stencil from Hero Arts just to give me a guide of where I'm going to add the light rays in. As you can see, it doesn't cover the entire panel because it's not really made to. It's made to have the kind of circle sun image in it, but it works really nicely just to give me a guide of where I need to actually use them. So I'm taking some unicorn white ink here and I'm just kind of pouncing that into the rays. I'm making sure that I'm not going all the way to the bottom because I don't want that line at the bottom of the stencil to be able to show, because I want to extend those rays further. So I'm just using an ink blending tool here, just pouncing that on. It's not going to be really dark. I wanted it to be fairly subtle, but that there will still be a bit of extra colour on there. And then I'm just using memo tape here just to mark off where those lines would go further down the panel, and then I can pounce that colour inside. And where it's lighter on the panel, you're not going to see it as much, but you do see it more towards the outside edges where the colour is darker. But I just think it kind of adds a bit of extra interest onto this panel. So just pouncing that on, and then I'm just going to go through and add all of the different lines there of the light rays. And that's that completed. And then I want to add a little bit extra on top. So this is the actual My Monthly Hero kit, and you get loads of different things in this stamp set. In particular, you can layer up a seabed or a coral reef, which is just really, really pretty, and that's on this card here that I made for the Hero Arts blog. But for the card today, I just want the bubbles images and then also the sentiment as well. But I just wanted to show you the main kit stamp set. So I'm just using that bubble stamp here. And again, I'm just adding a little bit more interest onto this panel. At the end of it, you probably don't see them that much, but I know that they're there, and I like that I did the extra mile and just added those bubbles in. So I'm just stamping those with the unicorn white ink again, and just randomly stamping those across the panel, some of them off like the edge there, as you can see, and it just again just gives a little bit more interest onto the panel. So next I'm going to stamp my images, and these are from the Need a Hand stamp set, which is from the July My Monthly Hero release. This is an add-on set to the kit. They work really nicely with the main kit. So I'm stamping that octopus there and also the seaweed image. And I'm stamping those onto some white cardstock using the Mini Misty here and some Intens-ified black ink. So I'm just going to stamp those a couple of times, and I do go back in and stamp a few more of the seaweed because I do want 3 at the end. Next, I'm going to colour those with Copic markers. I'm using purple tones for the octopus. I do apologise that my head does get in the way during quite a bit of the colouring today. I don't know why, but I found recently that I need to be really up close to manage to see what I'm colouring, and obviously that's not great for video, so I do apologise for that, but hopefully you can kind of see what I'm doing here. I'm not doing anything too exciting with the colouring. I'm really just trying to add a bits of darkness and bits of lightness. I want most of the light to kind of be towards the top of the image and then darker towards the bottom, so I'm adding the darkest colour here along the kind of bottoms of the legs. I did find out today that I'm this old when I realised that octopus don't have tentacles. I've always called them tentacles, but actually octopus have arms apparently, which I learned today. So I'm adding the darker colour towards the bottom of the arms and then lighter colour towards the top. I will have all of the colours that I use listed over on my blog if you're interested, and there'll be a link to that in the description box if you're watching directly on YouTube. So I'm just going in with the lighter shades here, and then I'm using some BG colours to add colour to the suckers on the arms. and then at the top of the head there as well. And then for the seaweed, I'm using my kind of go-to green colours, which are G29, YG17, YG25 and YG01. I find that they give quite a nice blend to kind of like greens in general, sort of more like grassy kind of colours. And then I'm going to use the coordinating dies to die cut them out. So I'm just placing them on top of the images and just using some low tack tape to keep them in place. Next I've got my card here, my card base, and I'm going to add my kind of sea scene on the inside. So I'm just sticking that panel down with some tape runner. And then I can add all of my kind of critters and things like that on top. So I'm going to add the octopus first, but I want to make sure that you can see him on the inside through the porthole at the front. But I don't want you to be able to see any of the other kind of scene through the porthole. I kind of want it to be sort of like a surprise. When you open it, you'll see a scene on the inside. But I just thought he looked so cute, kind of looking out from inside the porthole. So I'm just placing him down there, sticking him down with some precision glue. And then I've got the seaweed pieces that I'm going to add at the bottom. And for these, I wanted it to look like they were a lot longer than they actually are. So I'm going to cut the bottoms off so that you can't kind of see the bottoms, and it gives the illusion that they're quite long in length. So just using my mini guillotine here just to cut the bottoms off. And then I can stick those down at the bottom. So just cutting that last one down here, and I'm varying the heights of them. And then I can use some more precision glue just to stick them down. Just using my tweezers there just to help me out with the placement. And then it was at this point that I kind of realised that the scene was a little bit boring and there wasn't really that much going on. Like I said, I didn't want you to really be able to see much from the front of the card, but I found that on the inside I wanted something extra. So I'm going to stamp some fish and also the starfish here. I did do that off camera and just coloured those in and die cut those out. And then for the fish, there isn't a coordinating die for those, so I decided just to stamp them out, colour them, and then I fussy cut them separately. And I didn't really need like the whole kind of school of fish, so I just decided to add a few in. And like I said, I don't really want them to be seen from the front of the card, so just making sure where I'm placing them you can't really see them from the front. And I'm just sticking those down with some more precision glue. And they kind of just finish up the scene. It's still really quite clean and simple, but that's my style. And then what I'm going to do is just die cut another porthole, and I'm going to stick that on the inside so that you can't see any of the adhesive on the inside through that acetate. I'm just using a Swiffer cloth there just to make sure that there's nothing on the back of the acetate before I stick that porthole down. So again, I can just use some tape runner around the edges and then some precision glue in the inside. And just stick that down, and then I'm going to place an acrylic block over the top again just to make sure that that sticks really well to the acetate. And then I have stamped out the sentiment from the main My Monthly Hero kit, the one that I showed earlier from that large stamp set. I have heat embossed that onto black cardstock. And then I'm just adding some foam tape onto the back of that. I just ended up adding it onto the right hand side of that, just so that it leveled up with the front of the card. And then here I'm using some precision glue again. I'm just adding small dabs of that onto where the screws are on the porthole. You can't see them that well on the glitter cardstock, although you can see them quite well when you would cut them just from white or any other cardstock. So I wanted to make them a little bit more of a feature, so I'm just using some clear droplets here just to place them over the top. And once the glue dries, you won't be able to see that glue underneath. It will just dry clear. and I think it just adds a little bit extra embellishment onto the card. I really like how it turned out. I think it's just a cute little scene on the inside, and then obviously from the front you just see that octopus kind of peeking through the porthole. Links to the products that I used will be in the description bar on YouTube and also over on my blog. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.